Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when and where you are. Welcome to another Whiskey Festival in a Box 3.0 session. I'm delighted to say that we are going to be tasting the Milk and Honey Classic Single Malt from the guys at Milk and Honey. And I'm even more excited to say that we are joined by Tal Chotiner from the distillery, who is dialing in directly from Tel Aviv. So he's going to be joining me right now. Tal, how are you doing?
Hey, Eddie, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. All the better for seeing you and for having some milk and honey about to go in my glass.
Yeah, I know, but I can see your background is it's amazing, you know. There's so many things I want to try.
Well, one day maybe when we can all travel, you can come to York and I'll do you a tour of the office.
Great, great.
How's the weather and how are things over there?
I know. So today it was the first. They call it a blizzard or storm, but I know it's a bit of rain and the coldest day until now, which is around 15 centigrade, so 15 Celsius degrees. So kind of summer for in Scotland or something like that. Yeah. So, but it is it's rainy and very windy. But we like it. It's a good good reason to have another drum.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people at home would not have too much sympathy for 15 degrees in the winter. I think sometimes we're lucky to have 15 degrees in the summer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can do the switch. Let's replace the summers and then you do the winter. So because it's for me, you know, summer even though I was born in Tel Aviv, can go up to almost 40 degrees in the summer and very humid because you know the beach is just 5 minutes walk from here.
Yeah. 40 degrees is no good for me. I would just melt.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tal, thanks so much for coming on. Would you mind just introducing yourselves to the guys and gals at home, just in case they've not come across you in a whiskey festival or something like that, just so we know a bit about you.
So my name is Tal Chotiner, actually, not Chotiner, but you know it's kind of hard for you guys to say. I'm the oldest guy in the distillery here in Tel Aviv. My job description is the VP of international sales, but I started very young, I think, with the whiskey industry. I used to work for several companies in the country, learned some winemaking, and I was working for Diageo in Israel. That means that I had to wear a kilt we talked about the 40 degrees in the summer, so I had to wear a kilt just to conduct some whiskey tastings of Diageo malt or Johnny Walker Black Label and stuff like that. And I think that I was one of the first guys to actually talk about single malt and talk about whiskeys other than just regular non-aged blends. That used to be the only thing you can drink back then in Israel. But today, I think I did almost every role in the wine and spirit business in Israel. But for me, this is the part that I'm enjoying the most. Actually, export something that we are making here in Tel Aviv. And because of my background, because of my experience, I'm not only doing the sales, but we are a young and small distillery and a craft distillery, so we all doing everything together. So from my point, I'm thinking about the crazy stuff and about all kinds of crazy casks and places to age and stuff like that, and working together with Tomer Gore and the head distiller just to make it happen.
Brilliant. Sounds like good fun. As in most things in the whiskey industry are quite good fun. Now, listen, I'm gonna talk to you more about the distillery itself because obviously it's quite a young distillery, although not the youngest by all accounts. So it would be good to get a little bit of background to the distillery itself and what goes on there. But should we get cracking with the tasting? Because I know that's what everyone at home would like to do. So I'm going to open my... And If perhaps while we're nosing and tasting, Tal, if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us a little bit of detail about the classic bottling that everybody has.
Um, so for us, when we started, when we decided to make our first commercial whiskey, we actually launched our first whiskey in May 2017. It was only one cask, but this was our first commercial release, but we actually called it whiskey. Until then, we aged something that was younger than 3 years, and we called it young single malt. We didn't call it whiskey because we are following the Scottish regulations, but this is the first whiskey we actually launched. Not a very good timing to launch whiskey at the beginning of 2020, and then the world actually shut down. So it wasn't the best timing for us. But again, we don't stop. So the classic is mostly ex-bourbon casks. As Tomer calls them, a table whiskey, because we want it to be a whiskey that can talk to the broader crowd, and everyone can enjoy this whiskey. I call it a table whiskey because if you're watching a game of football, you put it on the table, it's finished until the halftime. Around 80% ex-bourbon casks. We really like our spirit, our cut, our new make with ex-bourbon cask, and of course our weather, which we're gonna probably talk about it later. 80%, and then 15 or 16% of STR red wine cask. STR, that means the shaved, toasted, and recharred casks that was originally developed by Dr. Jim Swan, the late Dr. Jim Swan, that was our first master distiller as well as our consultant. So ex-bourbon, STR, just for seasoning, spiciness, and some fruitiness, and then just a few drops of virgin oak. With our climate, virgin oak tends to be overwhelming and over-aggressive, but just a few drops, 4%, just connects it and I think give it more depth. It's at 46 ABV, it's non-chill filter, so if you taste, your taste is a little bit, gets you a kick of alcohol, just try another sip. But try to get the mouthfeel, the texture of this whiskey. We cut very high and very short. Our heart is very high and very short. That means it's very fruity, but you don't get a lot of oils from the tails. But then we have the line arms go down at 45 degrees angle. That means you don't have any reflux from the condenser. That means you have more oiliness from that. So this is why you get a kind of a medium-bodied whiskey. Very nice, I think, sweet one, vanilla one, and a very nice finish. Cheers.
Slange.
L'chaim.
Say that again.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, yeah.
L'chaim. You certainly get a lot of the spiciness and there's a real herby note to it as well.
Because just when you think what happens in our climate with the shaved, toasted, recharred, with the STR, that means there's a kind of a crocodile skin inside the cask. And then when it's hot, everything spreads and the liquid goes inside and observes a lot of characteristics, a lot of colors, and of course tannins and some spiciness from the wood and some oaky notes, and of course some fruity notes that come from the red wine. It was there before that. It's very thin, the cask, but it still gives you a lot of color. Extreme maturation for the first year, and then it's balanced like any other cask. So we just use a little bit of that in the blend, something like 15%, but you can, it's notable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do you feel about adding water to whiskey?
I think you should add some water to whiskey, but for me, because we're tasting a lot of casks here at 67, 68 degrees, so anyways. But yeah, I love it when what the water just adds to it in the first second.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You get some more woodiness now.
Yeah, I get a bit more of the fruit coming through with the water added, which is maybe masked by the spiciness a bit. So this is the kind of flagship of the range, right? This is the daily go-to.
It's the daily go-to. Yeah, it's we actually. I think this is what the distillery character is about.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we think about the distillery, when you're making 200,000, 230,000 bottles of whiskey a year, we're growing, but we're still at that number,
Mm-hmm.
and we can play, and this is the most important thing for us. You need something to be a rock, and this is our rock. This is the get to know Milk and Honey is this one, is this whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to taste the rest of them, but you can see behind me,
Yeah.
there's another series that's called the Elements, the peated red wine and the sherry, which are based, 50% is based on the same types of cask as this one, and then we add another element. So this is the core range, and then, we get crazy. You tasted some stuff, Eddie, we get crazy.
Yes, I have fun tasting all the things. So in terms of the distillery itself, I know it was established in 2014. And
2013, actually. 2013,
2013, sorry.
We just started building, yeah.
Okay, right, okay. And, therefore it is quite a young distillery still, but obviously by today's standards, you've been going for quite a while, because there's quite a few new distilleries since then. Yeah. How did it all come about? I mean, obviously a distillery in Israel is a whiskey distillery in Israel is not the sort of most natural thing that most people would think about. So obviously there must be some people who had a big passion for whiskey or something.
Yeah. So first of all, you have to remember that distillation was actually developed and started in this area, but our wine culture and distillation culture that disappeared over the years with all kinds of occupations. But there's those guys, and of course the main and founder and the owner, Mr. Tal Chotiner, which is actually the current CEO. He fell in love with whiskey. Now he was brewing at home, and he actually blamed me, I think, a few days ago that one of his best friends were in one of my whiskey tastings, I think 15 years ago, or something like that, or even more. I fell in love with whiskey, started drinking whiskey with him, and then they told him, okay, you brew some whiskey at home, let's do let's open a distillery. Why not don't distill? And then they started about thinking of opening a distillery. You have to understand that if you want an Israeli to do something, just tell him he can't. If you tell an Israeli it's impossible, we're probably going to do that. This is a kind of our thing, and I think that they started talking about distillery. I was in a meeting back in 2013, I think, with those guys, and started to talk about whiskey. And then when Gal laid down I think the financial plan and just the work plan of that, he understood that it had to be just a little bit bigger than just brewing at home or distilling at home, and then he thought, okay, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. And then he thought about opening a distillery in Tel Aviv, not anywhere else in Israel, because Tel Aviv is for us is the center. The capital is Jerusalem, but culture, culinary, nightlife, everything is here. And then he went for and looked for the best persons to do that. And of course, in climate like ours, there was only one guy that was so good and so famous, Dr. Jim Swan from Kabbalah, Amrut, and other hot climate countries like ours. And he came here, planned the distillery, planned the recipes, and then started working with Tomer. And I think we're still continuing kind of a family with the rest of the Jim Swan distilleries. We are in a good contact, but we're still keeping a lot of his ideas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, I was going to mention Jim Swan because obviously he's dearly missed by everyone, and it's still I think a big shock that he passed away when he did. But it's a measure of the guy's influence and his expertise that you are amongst a real cornucopia of whiskey distilleries that were helped at least by Jim and given
Yeah.
that kind of breath of life, I suppose. So yeah, I think it's great. It's great to see his legacy and you guys, very much amongst those Jim Swan legacy distilleries.
Yeah, and I think we are really in a good contact with Kilchoman, with Penderyn, with Nicknean, with Cotswolds. There's a lot of distilleries that are in good contact because we're like the Jim Swan boys,
Yes,
and
yes.
and we are trying to make some cooperations together, some info replacement, and I think it's very good for everyone. Just to learn a little bit of each other.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. Now, in terms of, obviously, you've got the four whiskies behind you, including the classic. Are there any new developments in the? Oh, I'm sure there are. Any new bottlings in the works that we should be looking out for in the next 12 months or so?
So yeah, this is us. um, Tomer and me, we call it the never-ending coffee because we meet here in the morning. Tomer's office is just like 50 meters behind me, in the middle of the production floor, and we call it the never-ending coffee because we have a coffee in the morning and then just starting to think about crazy ideas. For me, it comes from probably my experience and my knowledge in the rest of the spirit world and the wine world. And for Tomer, he just want to experiment. Um, so we start with different kinds of casks, like the pomegranate wine cask. I don't know if you came across this one, but we're gonna have some more of those, which are in Israel. We eat a lot of pomegranates. It's a part of our culture, and we have some we have a winery up north that makes wines only from pomegranates. They have fortified sweet wines like port style. They have red wines. They have rosé wines, and so we just sourcing their casks. It was a good idea, and I just wanted it to be good because it was everything was perfect with the idea, with the Israeli DNA, with marketing. But let's see what happens with the product, and the product was amazing. And I think so. We did two batches until now, so this one is coming next. I think we actually did this little thing that was our first ever bottling of young single malt, 1 year old pomegranate wine cask for the boutique. This is Tel Aviv Beach, and just the invoice was amazing from Tel Aviv to Scotland. It was like for us like selling ice to Eskimos. Um, so pomegranate wine casks. We have some Pinot de Charente. We have some orange wines. We have Calvados. We have tequila. I don't remember. We have, but orange wine, not from oranges, like real orange, funky orange wines. Some other crazy stuff. But I think that not only the cask type, beer casks, of course, and some, I don't know, we have some other crazy stuff. But not only the type of the cask. I think that Jim Swan fell in love with this project. It was because of the Israelis around me are kind of 450 kilometers from the northern point to the southern point, even less from the beach to the Jordan River. Um, by the way, if you go from Tel Aviv, which is the Mediterranean climate, zero elevation, 1 hour you're in Jerusalem, 750 meters above sea level in the mountains, which actually tonight is supposed to snow there. Here it's just a bit of rain. And then 1 hour later, you're in minus 428 meters below sea level at the Dead Sea. We have 5 climate zones in 450 kilometers. And just less than 2 hours drive, you're going up 750 meters and going down more than a kilometer down. So why not play with that? Dr. Jim Swan called it the playground. He said, why not play with all of those kind of climate zones or terroir in whiskey? Because we can. If you go 2 hours drive in Scotland, it's still going to be rainy with a lot of sheep. Here, you get some camels in the way after Jerusalem in the desert, but again, it's crazy. And then we have the Red Sea down south in Eilat. We have the desert. We have the mountains of the Galilee. which are snowing tonight, and we have the Sea of Galilee. Sea of Galilee is minus 200 meters, but very humid, unlike the Dead Sea, which is minus 428 meters, very dry, very high air pressure. So we just launched the first ever release of this terroir series, of the Apex series. And the Apex is the small batch and all kinds of the crazy ideas, the pomegranates, the cognacs, all of those. And the Dead Sea one, we just aged some casks for an experiment for 1.5 years there, because we have 25% angel share. In Tel Aviv we have 11, which is not shy, but 25% angel share at the Dead Sea. This is why we cannot do a full maturation there. First of all, because of too much wood extract, too much of wood influence. And the second thing is going to be probably empty, and I think it's going to be the most expensive air to bottle. But we launched this whiskey, and it's already won double gold in San Francisco, grand gold in Frankfurt, and I think it was sold out already. We had 5,000 bottles, something like that. Mm-hmm. So this was Dead Sea. We're going to have another batch of different casks, because we have all kinds of different casks lying around there. Mm-hmm. Tomer just did the blend today, I think, and it's crazy. We have some rye casks in there this time, ex-rye casks, and we'll see. It's probably going to be out in the beginning of January. Mm-hmm. And another pomegranate one, and now we have 3 new warehouses. One in the mountains of Jerusalem, which is dry, very different, big difference between day and night. It could be cold, very cold there, and one at the Sea of Galilee, and another one in the desert. Sea of Galilee, we'll see what's up with that. It's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be the most extreme from the Dead Sea, because Tel Aviv is hot and humid. Dead Sea is very hot and very dry, and the Sea of Galilee, it's everything together. 40 degrees, and 80-90% humidity. So you can understand why Jesus walked on water, because it was too hot anyway.
So it's very interesting, Tal, to hear the diversity of climate in such a short space of distance. Would you say that the terroir, as you call it, would be the biggest difference between you and a Scottish distillery or any other distillery around the world, or is there anything else in the production process beyond the influence of climate which you think sets you apart?
So I think that first of all, it's the climate. Even if we're going to do only whiskey in Tel Aviv, it's the climate. It's still the climate, because unlike distilleries in India, we have differences between summer and winter, and I think they have kind of almost the same weather all year long. And so for us, winter, even though it's raining today, but it's dry. The air is dry. So when the air is dry, you lose more water. So the ABV goes up. When in the summer, it's so humid and hot, so you lose more alcohol, so the ABV goes down. So our casks are working all the time. It's like we always laugh and say, I love those little clips from Scottish distilleries. We do that, we do this, and then the cask of whiskey is going to sleep for 12 years or more. And we're from Tel Aviv. No one's asleep here. This city is 24 hours party city, so this cask are the same thing. Because of that, if I'm starting with the climate and I'm starting with a rapid maturation, I think that because of that, we can experiment a lot, because we can see the beginning of a result, the beginning of a development with the characteristics of the whiskey in a few months. So if we try a Caribbean rum cask, or we try a rye cask, or a Amarone cask, or a Carignan cask, we kind of knowing where it's going in a few months. So this way we can play a lot, and this is us. This is Israelis. This is Tel Aviv. We think fast. We do think fast, and we want to experiment with everything we can. And because of our climate, we can see where it's going and continue to do that, not just try a cask and wait for 12 years. It's not for us. we're in the Middle East. You can never plan ahead 12 years, so it's it's a kind of a different place.
Absolutely. Are there any um, distilleries around the world that would enjoy a similar climate to yours?
Probably. Probably, yeah. I'm not sure again about this kind of climate, but any Mediterranean one would probably be not far from us. Um, I think Tel Aviv is hotter than Athens or Rome or Barcelona.
Mhm.
We kind of warmer climate, but again, I think it's a unique climate because of the difference between winter and summers, and I think the most extreme difference is the humidity. Once
Mm.
it's humid, once it's very dry, and it's really affects the evaporation, the angel share. This is why we start our new make with a very high and short cut. We cut between 80 to 70%, and the line arms goes down.
Mm.
And we need that because in a longer maturation, you can use much more oils from the tails, which when you start, they kind of got an off smell and off taste, which is going to be better and helps with antioxidations during the process of the maturation. We have a rapid maturation, so we cannot use that. It's going to be still off after 3, 4 years or 5 years.
Mm.
And then we kind of gain the oiliness because of the shape of the stills.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, we're probably not going to be able to age whiskey for longer than probably 6 years. We are trying. We'll see what's up with that, but we
Mhm.
don't want to turn the air condition on. So it's still, we're going to do it naturally, but we lose a lot of angel share. But not only that, the wood influence is too much.
Maybe you need a little warehouse at the top of the mountain for that.
Maybe if because tomorrow, not tomorrow, but probably in 2 days, the ski resort is going to be open. So it's everything here in just a few hours. And you can actually ski and scuba dive in the same day.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, it's fascinating. It really is, Tal. And one day I hope to come and visit because I'd love to experience it. Um,
We will love to have you here.
yeah,
Everyone, please, just when they open the skies again. So yeah.
yeah. Actually, do you welcome visitors? Do you have a visitor center at the distillery?
Yeah. We do, and pre-COVID time, we had around 1,000 people every month, which is
Wow.
not very big, but we have a little visitor center, a nice one. We have tours in English too. We don't have a lot of tourists at the moment because of COVID, but I guess we're probably going to embrace the fifth wave before everyone, and we're going to be out of the fifth wave before everyone, or get the fourth shot or whatever they're going to come up with. By the way, we have 25 people working at the distillery, from accountant to visitor center to bottling. And because we taste a lot of whiskey, no one was sick for the last 2 years. We have our own sanitizers.
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, fingers crossed. I haven't had it yet, so I'll put that down to the whiskey as well. Um, just obviously, you're a fan of whiskey, and you've worked for Diageo in the past, so you know your whiskey quite well as well, I imagine. Are there any other distilleries or whiskies from around the world that you're currently excited by or really really enjoy?
It's a hard question, but the few ones I really enjoyed from the last few tastings um, was a Glenallachie. I think I
Okay.
tasted a pretty good Glenallachie,
Hmm.
and I don't remember which one was that because there was a lot of whiskey on the table. I still really love Talisker. It's one of my favorites always. Talisker
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
Santis Small from Switzerland with
Mhm.
the peated one, which is crazy. It's just something I'm not used to. And just tasted a beautiful peated port one from Penderyn in Wales.
Oh
So
yes. Yeah.
yeah. And Penderyn, it's always amazing. I tasted the first one 20 years ago. I didn't really connect it to this whiskey, and as long as I tasted them for the last few years, did an amazing job. And of course, Cotswold, our good friends from Cotswold, which is a kind of a sister distillery to us.
Mhm.
We really like those guys,
Yeah,
and we really like their whiskey.
yeah, they make a great whiskey too. And just finally, Tal, what else do you enjoy aside from whiskey? Or are you whiskey through and through, or do you like a beer or a glass of wine? Or
I just tasted a very nice Rioja. We just had. For me, I always need a lager, a very cold pilsner or a lager. I think in order to make a good whiskey, you need to drink a good beer. Um, I map my world of civilization if you pour a good Guinness or not. If you pour a good Guinness, I reach civilization. If not, it's not a civilization country or a city. Uh, and I'm discovering the world of rum for the last few months or few years probably, which is crazy. Yeah, of course, I'm tasting everything. I'm drinking everything. I love mezcal. I love tequila. Crazy about cognacs, but rums, they're killing me. It's just mind opening now, and
yeah. Well, maybe you could persuade the powers that be to start trialing with rum.
we believe me, we have plans. So, you know me.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, Tal, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and we really appreciate the time you've set aside for today, and thank you for providing the classic bottling of Milk and Honey. It's really delicious, and I'm sure the folks at home are really enjoying it. I'm just going to say cheers again. Remind me how you say in
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. It's to life in Hebrew. To life.
Well, L'chaim. And thank you, Tal, once again, and all the best to you and the distillery team and everyone over the festive period.
Thank you so much. Enjoy our whiskey, and hope we can meet soon in the UK or just come to Tel Aviv. It's a fun city. And enjoy Milk and Honey.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Eddie. Bye-bye.